Hey guys, meteorologist Lindsey SLater here. Just a quick little space weather update. We do have a pretty large coronal hole that is right now kind of Earth directed. What that means is that we have a high speed stream of basically solar wind that is heading in Earth's direction. This is actually very typical of the sun, but when you have a high speed stream kind of pointed in our direction, this actually can cause the magnetosphere to become disturbed, and therefore you may have instances of you can get G1, G2, even G3 level storming without having a CME liftoff. So right now, the Space Weather Prediction Center showcasing we did have and reached G2 levels yesterday. It is predicted that we'll get G1 levels. Which is a little bit weaker as that coronal hole continues to rotate as we go through time. So you can really see where that coronal hole is right now. If I zoom out right there, this big butterfly looking thing, that is a pretty healthy coronal hole. The X-ray flux was all over the place yesterday. Not really sure the reasoning why. Again, I'm not a space weather physicist. I am a space weather enthusiast. I also have a space weather certificate. For a brief moment, KP indices reached about 5.67. Again, that's an average of 3 hours. So don't use this as a right now we have a K index or KP index rather of 7. That means auroras are happening right now. It's an average of a certain amount of time and it has already passed. So that is just something I want to be very aware of that with you guys. If you notice, there was a CME launch. We had that on the 9th. So that happened right around, it looks like noon. Let's see. Boom. See that right there on the east part of your Earth? That's basically going to be your west limb of the sun. It's backwards than it is Earth because of the way the sun is facing the Earth. The sun is the almighty thing. So we look at the sun as the primary rose compass. So it is the western limb of the sun. A little bit of feedback right there. I wonder if it caused any radiation storms. But for now, I don't see any of those particles that would indicate that. If it gets real fuzzy and almost looks like snow, it can be indicative of a radiation storm. That was interesting. I wonder what that was all about. Maybe just some weird feedback going on. There was a launch right here, but I feel like that might just be weird feedback. So I'll keep a close eye. It does look like we have a halo going here. So I'll keep a look at that. So when it comes to any kind of aurora activity, do I think this is going to cause aurora for the Midwest? No. What I think is interesting is usually yesterday afternoon, I did notice right here a little peak in that solar wind. I'm going to zoom it out so you guys can see a little bit better. Gosh, there's always so many ads. So we had a peak in that solar wind due to that high speed stream. The density was also fluctuating as a result, which is pretty indicative of high speed streams. Plus, we did have a south oriented, a weak one, but south oriented BZ values, which is easier for the Earth to have storming. When you go to the north, it's like magnets. It's like you have the north BZ and then you have the earth, and it's like the opposing magnets when it's north. When it's south, magnets like to come together. So that is a better indication of the magnetosphere lining up with the solar wind to create storming. Unfortunately, we do have, there's the BZ, a pretty large moon. So even if we did have aurora last night, if it was weak, you weren't going to see a lot of it because we're so close to a full moon at this point. We already had that full corn moon, so we're on the descending phase, if you will, of that. Sunspot regions, pretty active regions in 4213, 4211 there. There was some solar fluxing going on, but when it comes to the classes, these are pretty minor. I did want to point out 42, this is what, 4211. It does look like this hasn't really increased too much in size. There's only one sunspot there. And the number of sunspots have actually gone up, becoming a little bit more complex than 4213. But yeah, these are pretty small sunspots with not a lot of complexity. So I'm not that impressed. I would say this is the big story, is this big coronal hole. This is what's causing a lot of this. But there are some prominences right here. These little regions right here can actually cause some more liftoff. So that's pretty interesting. And we're probably getting some good storming happening over there on the eastern limb of the sun. So that's pretty interesting. The sun is really starting to kind of light up a little bit, if you will. I'm going to go to the observatory so I can see a solar flare. 131 is great for solar flaring. And there is right there. You can see it, that little nugget right there. That's a pretty nice flare, and lots of flaring in the region I just talked about. So we could have some flares happening, but that coronal hole is pretty big. Here is that prominence that could lift off. So that's something I'll closely watch. I'm on the Discord channel for a lot of these websites, so I'll continue to monitor. And if I see anything more interesting, I will let you guys know.